let's work it through though. If there was to be an increase in the GST, and people want some sort of not just compensation but trade-off, other taxes go. What other taxes could be reviewed?
Well, I can only really refer you to the history on our side of politics. And when this was done by Peter Costello and John Howard, taxes were stamp duties on various transactions, income taxes, all of these wholesale sales taxes, all of that went.
There's a few survived too, which we thought they
did, and I think some of those were state taxes, which the state taxes did not follow through on as part of that original arrangement. And that's why I think this time round we need to be very clear if we're to go down this path about what everyone's going to do, what goes. But I want to see
what would go, what could go from a federal point of view. What could you say? Okay, GST's going up, but that goes federally.
What I've been focusing on is actually not consumption taxes, but I've been focusing on income taxes. And as we've said before, I'm very concerned that if you're on an average wage, over the last 15 years, you're earning twice as much around that, but you're paying almost three times as much income tax. And if you're on the average wage, next year you'll go into the second highest tax bracket. So I'm concerned about that and how the personal income tax system is actually holding back Australians who are out there working and saving and investing.
So could there be an increase in the GST and a trade-off by reduction in income tax?
Well, that's certainly what happened last time when that was looked at, and they're the obvious types of things that you do as part of any package, and that's why you've got to work through all these details with the states and territories. I mean, I've never said that this is about trying to raise more taxes for more spending. That's not my objective. That's not the government's objective. States will bring their objectives to the table, and we have to work together to try and get, I think, a sensible compromise.
So are there any other taxes that you would look at dropping? What is something you'd like to get rid of?
Well, at the next meeting of state treasurers, we're looking at a whole range of state and territory taxes, and one that often comes up is the insurance levies, and that costs Australians around $6 billion a year, and that's a state and territory charge. It's a tax on insuring your insurance, and we do have issues of underinsurance in this country. That's a fairly straightforward state and territory levy that could be dealt with, but there are many others.
Any federal taxes you could trade off?
Well, we're always concerned about the level of competitiveness of our tax system, and corporate taxes, the investment asset write-offs, the instant asset write-offs, I should say. I mean, we introduced that for companies of turnover of $2 million and less in the last budget. If the budget allowed, we would have very much liked to have gone higher than that. I mean, these are the sorts of trade-offs, whether it's in corporate taxes, personal income taxes, that you can look at to ensure that you change the tax system. It's not about increasing the tax burden, it's about having a better set of taxes.
So can you guarantee us the tax burden will be no higher?
Well, look, we're still working through the compromise with the states and territories. I mean, that's certainly our objective. That's what we would like to see.
So will the federal tax take be no higher?
Well, the GST is a state tax collected by the federal government, and so we're certainly not looking at increasing other taxes, no.
No, that's a bit disingenuous. I mean, it is a state tax, but it helps the federal government because it's giving it back to the states. It means you don't have to raise money elsewhere to do it.
Well, all the money goes to the states, and they spend it all.
Okay. Well, but look, in simple terms,
that was its purpose.
In simple terms, add the GST to an increase in the GST to what we're paying at the end of that year. Are we going to be paying more tax overall, less, or the same?
Well, I can only show you the experience from when John Howard and Peter Costello did it, and of course, there's a one-off adjustment that has to be made for compensation. That's what happened last time, and what's important is that last time we did not see an indexed effect of the increase that was undertaken at that time.
All right.
And so there's a one-off effect that you have to deal with compensation, and you do that through the tax scales as well as through the payment system. And this is the lived experience of Australia, and I think that's why we've seen what we've seen today. People know, when this was done before, that there was adequate compensation. If anything, there was overcompensation. That's what the history tells us. And there were big changes to the tax system. Income tax levels were cut, and other taxes were cut right across the board.